Good afternoon, dear guests. Welcome to our webinar today, where we will discuss the opportunities offered by Bahrain FinTech ecosystem to the FinTech community in Turkey. We will have the chance to talk about digitalization in Bahrain and the growing FinTech opportunity. Let me shortly introduce myself. I'm Neşe Seçer, the Turkey Director at the Bahrain Economic Development Board. Being based in Istanbul, we as Bahrain EDB Turkey office assist Turkish companies to set up and grow in Bahrain. I would like to take this opportunity to also provide a short brief about the current Turkish investments in the field of financial services in Bahrain. So far, there are 8 Turkish banks from Turkey actively operating as wholesale banks in Bahrain. Namely, these are İşbank, Ziraat Bankası, Halkbank, Denizbank, Finansbank, Kuveyt Türk, Yapı Kredi, and Türkiye Vakıflar Bankası. There are also fintech companies that apply to the sandbox in Bahrain. And hopefully, Turkish investment in the field of financial services in Bahrain will keep on increasing. Following this short introduction, let me introduce our speakers. In today's 1-hour-long webinar, our moderator is Professor Selim Yazıcı, who is the co-founder of FinTech Istanbul. And our speakers from Bahrain are 4 distinguished businesswomen who are also an excellent example of the active role of women in the FinTech field in Bahrain. To name, today with us is Ms. Dalal Buheci, a Director of Financial Services at Bahrain Economic Development Board, Ms. Wajiha Avat, a Section Head of Digital Banking and FinTech at Al Baraka Banking Group, Ms. Naval Nazieh, a Senior Analyst at the FinTech Consortium at FinTech Bay, and Ms. Yasmin Janahi, Assistant Analyst at FinTech and Innovation Unit at the Central Bank of Bahrain. So welcome to all of our speakers from Bahrain. Following the presentation of our speakers, we will have a panel followed by Q&A session. So I would kindly ask our audience to share their questions through the chat session. Our moderator will address these, and our panelists will be happy to answer and clarify further. If time does not allow, we will make sure to answer these afterwards. You will see our contact details at the end of the session, so you're welcome to reach us anytime for further discussion. So I'm very excited about our Bahrain FinTech webinar today and would like to leave the floor to Dr. Selim Yazıcı to start the panel. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to our webinar today. I hope you are all well also. My name is Selim Yazıcı. I'm the co-founder of FinTech Istanbul and professor at Istanbul University. Let me start by saying a few words about FinTech Istanbul. FinTech Istanbul was launched in February 2016. We are trying to build bridges between FinTech startups, corporations, regulators, and investors to create a healthy ecosystem in Turkey. We deliver FinTech and blockchain related courses, organize some meetups, create content such as reports and our most famous FinTech map, and build connections with other hubs to stimulate know-how transfer between the hubs. We also help foreign FinTech startups to set up their businesses in Turkey by connecting them with the right persons or the partners for a soft landing in Turkey. We understand that it's very important to create networks between the hubs to stream knowledge, talent, and investment across countries. That's why we have established partnerships with different hubs all around the world and connect our ecosystem with their ecosystem. With this connection, we have organized meetings, invite speakers and investors all around the world to show the level of maturity in the Turkish FinTech ecosystem and demonstrate our startups and their innovative ideas. In a similar way, today with Bahrain Economic Development Board, we organized a webinar, and today we are hosting a delegation from Bahrain FinTech ecosystem. After the opening speeches and Dalal's keynote at the panel, we will discuss the FinTech ecosystem and the opportunities in Bahrain for Turkish startups. Now I will leave the words to Dalal from Bahrain Economic Development Board to make her speech. Yes, please, Dalal, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Salim. I'm super excited to be part of this webinar today. Thank you as well to FinTech Istanbul for organizing it. You know, FinTech is very dear to my heart. I've witnessed the FinTech growth in Bahrain, but also globally for the last few years. I'm quite excited to be sharing this webinar with everyone. I'm also excited to hear our panelists that will soon join afterwards to discuss their thoughts from their different perspective on the growth of the FinTech opportunity in Bahrain. If you allow me, I would like to just walk you through a couple slides just to give you an overview of what we do at the Bahrain Economic Development Board, but also what Bahrain has to offer when it comes to FinTech. So if I go to the first slide, please. As you can see, Bahrain is very known for its financial services sector. It has a very mature financial services sector rooting back to 40 plus years. We're actually celebrating our 100 years of banking in Bahrain. It's the largest contributor to our economy actually after oil and gas, being 17% contributor to our GDP. We have over 370 licensed financial institutions. So naturally, you will see that these companies will start to innovate. And the last few years, we've seen FinTech growing quite significantly. I'm quite excited to hear my colleague from the Central Bank of Bahrain, who's joining us in the panel later on, who will shed more light as well on her perspective from the Central Bank of Bahrain on the different kind of regulations that have been put in place to support the growth of the FinTech ecosystem. Bahrain have noticed a very great advancement in the development of the FinTech ecosystem as well. And we do have our colleagues from the Bahrain FinTech Bay that will provide you with a good overview as well and insight how they were able to bring in the industry together to transform the industry from a traditional one to a advanced FinTech driven one. And last but not least, also we have obviously, as Nisha introduced earlier on, Al Baraka Bank, who have been also leaders when it comes to innovation in the banking sector. Now, Bahrain is a good place to start innovation and to start scaling up to the region, being a small economy that's very cost effective with a talented workforce. And may I also add that Bahrain is very close to Istanbul and Turkey. It's a 3.5-hour flight away with multiple different airlines that can actually take direct flights from Bahrain to Turkey. That will be very beneficial as well for all of our listeners today who are interested in expanding into the region. Last but not least, if I walk you to the last slide, and this slide, basically, I wanted you to have an understanding, an idea how developed Bahrain is when it comes to regulations. And this might be appealing to our audience as well today, as each one might belong to a different subsector within the FinTech, whether it's the sandbox, whether it's a crypto assets or the robo-advisory. I know probably Dr. Salim will later on maybe tap into more about the regulatory sandbox and what the opportunities are that what you can look into and considering when expanding. And I'm very proud to say that Bahrain has done tremendous efforts into growing its ecosystem through all of these number of regulations that you can see on the slide. As my colleague Nesha said, do feel free to reach out to us. Think of us as a first point of contact for any company that is wishing to understand the landscape and understand how to set up in Bahrain. We'll be more than glad to guide you and handhold you to the process and guide you into what would be the best way to set up. I'm not going to take much of your time because we have a very interesting panel coming up. But before we jump into the panel, there's a short video that we wish to share with you. And right after the video, we will kickstart our very exciting panel.
Okay, hello again. Thank you, Delal. After your informative keynote, now it's time for the panel. Today at the panel, I'll be hosting some of the key figures from Bahrain FinTech ecosystem to talk about what Bahrain can offer to FinTech startups, the investment climate in Bahrain, and strengths and the challenges of the ecosystem in Bahrain. I have three distinguished ladies from Bahrain, Yasmin Janahi from Central Bank of Bahrain. She is working at FinTech and Innovation Unit of Central Bank of Bahrain. Hello, Yasmin.
Hi, Salim.
We have Nawal Nazia from Bahrain FinTech Bay. She's a senior analyst. Welcome, Nawal.
Hello, everyone.
And also I have Wajiha Awad from Alberca Banking Group. She is the section head of digital banking and FinTech. Hello, Wajiha.
Hi, everyone.
Great to have you all today, ladies. Before we start, as far as I know, FinTech regulatory regimes started emerging in the Gulf region around 2017. Since then, the region has become a hotbed for FinTech activity and regulatory developments, with several jurisdictions competing to establish themselves as the FinTech hub in the region. Bahrain has emerged as one of the leaders in the GCC region for developing ecosystem supportive to FinTech developments. So today, we will talk about this journey and the challenges they faced in Bahrain while creating this supportive ecosystem. I will ask as many questions as I can, and if we still have time, I'll get some questions from the audience from YouTube. So I'll start from the regulatory perspective. Yasmin. You are from Central Bank of Bahrain. Many of the reports say that says that Bahrain has the most comprehensive FinTech strategy in the Arab world and is an exemplary model in the region. For me, maybe the most important issue in Bahrain is the regulatory sandbox. I think everything started with the introduction of the sandbox in, I think, 2017. I think it's the first one in the region, actually. Let's talk a little bit about it. How did the sandbox come about, and how does it promote innovation in Bahrain?
First of all, Salim, thank you so much for that introduction. I'd just like to thank the EDB and FinTech Istanbul for organizing this event. I think this is a very important ongoing discussion that we need to have in order to further develop our FinTech ecosystem. So in order to answer your question, the regulatory sandbox was formed in May 2017. Now, what it acts as is it's a virtual testing bed for FinTechs and other firms to basically test out their innovative solutions within our market and break into our market in a lightly regulated, controlled manner. I believe that the sandbox is innovative by its very nature. I can explain an example of how it promotes innovation with an example. One of our first sandbox graduates was Tarabat Gateway. Now, when Tarabat Gateway joined the sandbox, we didn't have any open banking regulations. Today, Tarabat Gateway is licensed as an AISP and PISP provider, and Bahrain is one of the first countries in the GCT to mandate open banking services for all retail banks. So as you can tell, the sandbox has helped promote this innovation and this drive for our economy to basically build itself as an innovation hub in the region.
So what's the difference between the sandbox and the normal license?
So the sandbox is basically a temporary authorization, and it's in a controlled manner, as I said. So it's very lightly regulated. And of course, there are thresholds put in place for the companies that decide to participate in it. For example, we don't like them to exceed a certain volunteer customer size. We like them to have a certain transaction size limit. And of course, the duration is between 9 to 12 months, typically. So with a license, of course, it's a fully fledged licensed entity that is bound by full regulations and responsibilities.
So how do you get into the sandbox? What's the process?
So because we have a very global sandbox with companies from all over the world, we wanted to create an application process that was accessible to all. It's online within the Central Bank of Bahrain's website. And an entity can basically just log in and just click on the application and fill out the application. The licensing unit of the CBB typically just runs through the application and revises it, and we get back to the sandbox company within 15 days.
15 days, wow, perfect.
Yes.
How many companies are there in the sandbox right now?
Currently, we have 30 companies in the sandbox.
30 companies, wow, that's great.
Yep.
Which verticals are popular in the sandbox?
So currently, our 27% of our sandbox participants are crypto services and crypto exchanges. That seems to be quite popular. However, we've got a very diverse sandbox, and I'm proud to say it. We've got payment service providers, robo-advisory platforms, we've got open banking platforms. So we do have a diverse sandbox, and we've also got a couple that have graduated as well. We have 6 companies that have graduated from the sandbox, and 2 of them are licensed currently.
Wow, that's great. We will talk a little bit more later, but I will return to Nawal about ecosystem in Bahrain. You're from Bahrain FinTech Bay, Nawal, which is the middle of the ecosystem. So from an ecosystem perspective, what's the startup FinTech ecosystem like in Bahrain? Let's start by asking this.
Well, first and foremost, Salim, thank you for having me here. It's really good. When we talk about the startup ecosystem of Bahrain, I would say we have a tremendous amount of support from the government, right? So be it the central bank, the Economic Development Board, or Temkeen, even our local labor fund, or other government entities or initiatives. We have so many programs that are geared towards, supporting and encouraging these startups to, get out there, start their business, work on their ideas, and, do something specifically in the entrepreneurship side. Because if you look at the statistics for SMEs in Bahrain, they contribute roughly 30% to the GDP, and that's like a very integral part for the economy. So thus the tremendous amount of support. Now, to give you an example of such a support within our ecosystem, I would say it's Bahrain FinTech Bay itself. So Bahrain FinTech Bay was formed as a public-private partnership between the Economic Development Board and FinTech Consortium based out of Singapore. And together, the entire purpose of this, of Bahrain FinTech Bay is to act as a starting point for all these FinTech startups that are either struggling or looking for a way into the ecosystem, or anything as such, through our co-working space. And Bahrain FinTech Bay is so much more than a co-working space because we have several programs that are geared towards different startups at different stages. So if you're in ideation stage, if you're a scale up, you're a growth stage, or anything of that sort, there is a program, there is a plan for you, right? And that's the whole purpose of Bahrain FinTech Bay as a support system, as a center point, as a touch point for all these FinTech startups. And we've had startups from across different verticals and geographies. We have startups from payments, cryptocurrency, regtech, and so forth.
Okay, what kind of, you're mentioning the programs. What kind of programs do you have for the entrepreneurs?
Well, we have several programs. Like I said, we cater to different sorts of FinTech companies from different backgrounds, different growth stages. So firstly, obviously, we have the incubation program that is a co-working space. And we also have our venture acceleration platform that is geared more towards scale-ups. So what we do through this platform is that we focus on the strategic expansion of these scale-ups, particularly within the GCC, and that through our partnership network. Now, our partnership network comprises of financial institutions, corporates, technology firms, government entities, and telecommunication companies. And it's not only in Bahrain. We have our global platforms as well in Silicon Valley, Detroit, Jordan, and Singapore. So put all together, it's a very vast network of different entities, different stakeholders that could definitely add value to the startup that we're trying to help out, right? So essentially the whole idea of this venture acceleration platform is to increase the speed to market and also increase their access to, you know, the available market opportunities in the country or outside as well. Apart from this, we do host a lot of hackathons, and the best thing about our hackathons is, given that they're short term, we focus on the trending topic of the time. So we've had a hackathon that was on sustainable fintech solutions. We had a hackathon on open banking back when the CBB released open banking, the framework on open banking. We recently had a hackathon in partnership with Standard Chartered that was focused more on the on delivering fintech solutions that are focused towards the current global pandemic. So, you know, it's more focused on the trending topic of that time, and we've brought in some really good ideas. And just recently, we were done with the demo day, and it was, you know, a great affair altogether. And apart from that, actually, we have our FinTech acceleration program. And the thing is that we've had quite a bit of interest from companies based out of Turkey who've applied to the program. I think we have quite a few who've expressed their interest. And typically these programs are held in partnership with our banks or the financial institutions here. So they present a problem statement, we source the applications to provide them with the solutions that best fit their needs. So all in all, we do have a very comprehensive programs that, you know, cater to different people, both for local and international startups.
Okay, as far as I can, as I understand, there are many beneficiaries to be a resident in the BFP, right?
Yep.
So, are you the only organization in Bahrain to organize such events, or are there some any other organizations?
Well, we are one of the entities in Bahrain. Our specialty is that we focus on fintech startups. Unlike other accelerators and incubators, we have quite a few. I'd say our ecosystem is very tight-knit, as in most of our programs are held, you know, they're very much interconnected. We have the same partners as in our accelerators, incubators, investors, community groups, and so forth. But there are other co-working spaces, but Bahrain FinTech Bay is the only one that focuses specifically on fintech solutions.
Okay, thank you. Now let's return to the bank side. Wajiha, you are from Al Baraka Bank, one of the major Islamic finance institutions, and you are the section head of digital banking and fintech. From a banker's view, can you share me some of your insights and your views about fintech ecosystem in Bahrain?
Yeah, sure. Now, before I start, I want to thank FinTech Istanbul and EDB for having this great session. I think it's a good start to, you know, create some bridges between these two ecosystems, especially that I come from Al Baraka Banking Group. Just as a quick intro, we exist in 17 different markets, and one of our biggest operation is in Turkey itself and Bahrain as well. So we have a good sort of collaboration between these two countries. Maybe if we speak about, you know, what you said in terms of ecosystem of Bahrain, Bahrain has a quite advanced ecosystem, not just from regulatory aspect, which has been covered by both Dalal and Yasmin from CBB, but also from infrastructure perspective. From the technical side, we have, you know, we have Amazon here. We have a 5G network. It's a very ready market for any fintech startup that want to be based or expand to from technological perspective. You have, there's an open banking regulation, which means that even banks are ready to collaborate and partner with these fintechs. So for example, Yasmin mentioned the Tarabat Gateway. So basically, Al Baraka Bahrain, the retail unit in Bahrain, has worked with Tarabat on testing their solution before they become licensed. So we have this appetite of collaborating and working with fintechs to test their solutions through the sandboxes that we have and the APIs that we are ready to share for them to test. So I mean, aside from that, we have, you know, a very important aspect in terms of talent. So we have universities that have programs and degrees that, you know, prepare such talent to be pushed into the fintech industry. So all this, I think, from the perspective of regulatory, financial institutions, infrastructure, and the talents, they all create a good infrastructure or ecosystem for such fintech to consider as a market.
Well, perfect. In terms of market size, the population is, I think, 1.5 million. I think it's a very good test site for the fintech startups.
Yes.
So, also, the region holds a great promise. It is one of the world's largest unbanked populations. And do you think that technology will play a critical role in solving this problem?
Definitely. I think being a small market is a more of an advantage, especially for fintechs that they are in the beginning stage of their career or entrepreneurial journey, because this is where you have a supportive ecosystem, a small market to test on your project or your solution, and then accordingly expand to other markets. Bahrain strategically, it is, you know, based in GCC, so it can give you access to the GCC countries, not just the Bahrain itself. There is another thing, maybe, you know, Yasmin can talk about it later on, but Central Bank of Bahrain, they are part of the Global Financial Innovation Network, which is a network with other regulators around the globe that allow whoever comes to this network to test their solution across different jurisdictions. So it is a small market, yet with technology and partnerships that we offer in the Bahraini market, you can expand to international markets as well.
Yeah, sure. So you're from an Islamic financial institution. What would you say are the potential opportunities in Islamic fintech in Bahrain?
Yeah. Now, what differs, you know, normal fintech to Islamic fintech is that they provide fintech that is Sharia compliant in terms of their products and services. And what Bahrain is known for, it's that it's a leader, one of the leading countries when it comes to Islamic finance industry. This has been, you know, many years ago once we had, you know, a number of regulations that allow Islamic banks to operate. But aside from that, we have, you know, major organizations like AUFI that puts standards and best practices for, you know, this industry based in Bahrain. So from regulatory aspect, we're not just even, you know, we are known or leader in Islamic finance, but we have specific regulations that catered to such fintechs like Sharia compliant crowdfunding platforms. So there's a specific regulation, which again, Yasmin can talk about. But then at the same time, you have a market that understands such demand and such solution. And you have as well tech-savvy Muslims who are willing to use and get into this market. But on top of everything, there's an ecosystem that fully understands it. This will not be a strange thing that you're bringing to the market, tech-savvy and very much knowledgeable in the Islamic finance industry. So this all creates a good push for such Islamic fintechs to operate.
Great. Well, in terms of cooperation between banks and fintechs, how do you cooperate with fintechs?
Okay, now generally there are different approaches and every bank has its own strategy on how to move on with fintechs. Now, some of them, they would actually, you know, have them incubated in the bank through their garage. So for example, in Turkey, we have Al Baraka Garage. It's based in Istanbul. So this is one of the approaches, but then other approaches is to partner and collaborate with them and, you know, create a common fintech through partnership and push it into the market. This is also an approach we've done, you know, by expanding into German markets through our Insha digital only bank. So there are different approaches. It comes from partnership, acquisition, investment, as well as, you know, having hackathons and hosting them in the acceleration programs. So there are different approaches, and it really depends on each market and each bank's strategy.
Yeah, Insha is very popular in Germany. I know that. So let's return to Yasmin and let's talk a little bit about the regulation and the role of the regulators. As far as I know, you have a single regulator in Bahrain, which is the central bank, right?
that's us.
I think that's a good opportunity to have a single regulator.
Absolutely. I think there is a strength with having a single regulator. Everything comes to us, basically. So we're able to have a general overview with what's going on in the markets. And I think it's absolutely a strength.
Okay, what are the fintech regulated policies and regulations developed by central bank?
So actually, we have a bunch of regulations that were pushed forth. We've got crowdfunding regulations, we have open banking regulations, robo-advisory, insurance advisory, and all of these, cloud computing, and all of these regulations have helped build a diverse and forward-thinking fintech ecosystem. And I believe that having such innovative regulations has helped drive other financial institutions within Bahrain, as well as a fintech ecosystem to basically implement them.
Well, everything seems perfect. I wonder, what is the fintech model of Bahrain? I mean, do you have a role model from East or from West?
I think that's an interesting question because every market is different, right? Every market has its own makeup, has its own unique traits, but certainly we do gain inspiration from other regulators around the world. So we conduct studies on what Singapore is doing, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. We're also part of, as Waji had mentioned, the Global Financial Innovation Network and many different working streams. So we're part of the GCC Secretariat's GCC FinTech Working Group, part of the Arab Monetary Fund, part of GFIN. And all of this helps us gain knowledge about what global players, fintech players and global fintech ecosystems have been implementing and what's worked for their market. But what works for one market might not necessarily work for Bahrain. So we're definitely trying to build a unique ecosystem in that sense.
Sure, perfect. So what are the building blocks in your model, I mean?
What do you mean exactly by building blocks?
I mean, the framework, the regulatory framework, the human capital, I mean, the talent, the incubation, are they still on the agenda or the main building blocks of this model?
So I believe when it comes to Bahrain's fintech ecosystem, there are a lot of strengths and a lot of building blocks that have helped us reach to this point. One of the main ones has been good communication and collaboration between fintech ecosystem players. So I'm basically everyone on this call, the financial institutions, Bahrain FinTech Bay, the Economic Development Board. And truthfully, I think the drive that our market has and the human talent that our market has is partly due to that communication, but also partly due to the sharp human resources we implement within Bahrain. So as I had mentioned, the communication between fintech ecosystems comes as an advantage. And this also comes as an advantage to our regulatory sandbox as well. So our startups are able to basically build themselves in Bahrain and establish themselves and use Bahrain as a testing ground while being able to communicate with different fintech ecosystem players. So the EDB helps them start up in Bahrain. Bahrain FinTech Bay might offer them an office space. The banks are there to help test with them. And I don't think that's something that is available globally. I think that's something that is unique to our markets here in Bahrain.
Yes, when you talk about fintech, there are many portions on the table. And I know it's not very easy to put all the institutions at the same table. So how did you succeed that? I know that it's not very easy.
Of course, it's not easy because when it comes to implementing any sort of change, there is going to be some struggle. That is a known fact. However, one thing about Bahrain is that we have always basically amended towards the times. We do what the times need. And the times right now are calling for a fintech ecosystem. And especially given the global pandemic, I think Bahrain has done an excellent job with being able to build technological, innovative solutions in order to help throughout this pandemic. And that's just something about Bahrain. I think we're able to act as an innovator and an innovation hub no matter what the times call for.
Okay, then the main role is up to the government, I think.
I mean, yes, but it's also Bahrain. So as a regulator, the Central Bank of Bahrain prides itself on being one of the most accessible regulators. And as I had mentioned, we have great communication with our ecosystem players. So no matter what, we like to hear from our ecosystem players. We like to collaborate on what is being pushed forth.
Okay, that's perfect. Let's return to the ecosystem side, Nawal. So there are many bodies in the ecosystem. I mean, the Central Bank, Economic Development Board, and Bahrain Development Bank are all in the same journey. So let's talk about this journey. Is this an economic need for Bahrain to choose FinTech to invest from the government side?
That's a good question, Salim. Well, obviously, you know, with Bahrain's vision to become a digital economy, obviously technology becomes a very important part for the economy. Now, when you put technology, that is digital transformation, and SMEs or startups, you put them together, they both are two key aspects that run the economy, right? Like I mentioned in the beginning, SMEs contribute 30% to the GDP, and you need technology for the digital transformation. So put it together, you have FinTech, and it is a very important part. And like, you know, Yasmin has mentioned, we really have a strong and forward-thinking government that really thinks about these different things that need to come together. And yes, it is difficult to put it all together, you know, we have the government to work with, we have the startups to work with, and we have the corporates to put together. And altogether, it is a push from the economy itself to be digitally there, to be out there, you know, have everything digitalized. You know, we have a lot of initiatives pushed by the government to have, you know, digital payments, especially during the global pandemic. I think a lot of things have come forward in terms of digitalization, be it corporates even have turned their way towards digitalization. Even companies who didn't think that they needed it have started looking at these options. So I think the global pandemic and altogether the government push has opened several doors for technology and eventually FinTech startups as well.
Okay, I have one tough question. I think you have studied all the ecosystems in the GCC region. So, do you consider Bahrain as the FinTech hub in the Gulf region?
Tough question indeed. Okay, so like I think Yasmin has said, and I think even Dalal in the beginning, she showed a map of where we are in terms of, you know, let's say regulations, for example. I think we are quite progressive when it has come to issuing regulations and getting out there, even with our regulatory sandbox. We've issued quite a few, and Yasmin has even mentioned them. Apart from that, we do have, I think you mentioned this, we have one single regulatory authority in the country, unlike other countries that may be a bit fragmented. So that's kind of a disadvantage as well. So I think that's a huge plus point for us, that we are united in our front of regulatory authority. And not only that, we do work very closely with, as Bahrain FinTech Bay, we do work very closely with the Central Bank of Bahrain and also corporates. In fact, Al Baraka is actually one of our founding partners at Bahrain FinTech Bay. And most of the leading and large financial institutions are our partners. So I think another plus point is that we have this interconnectivity between all the stakeholders that are needed to push forward a startup. So for example, say we have a startup, a FinTech company, we think they can really work well and collaborate well with one of our corporates or financial institutions. We help bridge that connection. We have that communication and we take them forward. So given how we are very closely connected with each other, I think that's even another plus point. So whether we are better than the rest or not, but we do have a lot of plus points that take us forward. just like so many other countries have their own pluses, right?
Yes, sure. There's a tough competition in the region between Bahrain, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Kuwait. They're all on the, I think they all have the same agenda, but I'm sure that you have some points that is very basically distinguishing yourself from the others.
Yeah. And we also maintain close relations with quite a few entities in the UAE, in Saudi, Qatar. We do maintain close relations as well.
Okay. So let's return to the banks. Wajiha, I think some of the banks have some investment strategy on fintechs through their CVCs. I mean, corporate venture capital system. So do you have some sort of strategy? I mean,
well, yes. Now in Turkey we have. However, in Bahrain, nothing is, in that direction at the moment. But this is something, it's quite common nowadays globally for banks to have such a strategy in order to invest in these kind of fintechs. And this just something to add on what Nawal was saying about, creating these bridges. Now, in Al Baraka Garage in Istanbul, we have a number of fintechs who are looking into the Bahraini market. And as we are a founding partner of Bahrain FinTech Bay, what we have done is that we have, connected them together. They're looking at the different programs and opportunities that Bahrain FinTech Bay offering. So this is something that we are looking as well, not just, direct investment.
Okay, as far as I understand, you have connections with Al Baraka Garage in Turkey, but do you want to onboard some of those startups from Turkey side to Bahrain side?
Well, it's based on demand and strategy of the Bahraini retail bank. So as I said, every market and every bank has its own priorities and digital transformation strategy. So wherever the areas that are related to collaboration, perhaps such thing will take place. But this would really go back to how the bank is prioritizing. Just to clarify, in Bahrain, we have the group head office based in Bahrain as well as the retail part. But generally that, we've seen great interest by some of our fintech startups in the garage in Istanbul, in the Bahraini market, many because of the points that was raised by Nawal, that, Bahrain gives an edge for such startups to consider for expansion into the GCC market. And this is why we've been in touch with Bahrain FinTech Bay on how such collaborations and, support can be extended.
Yes. Nawal, we know that it's very important for startups to get some investment at some certain points. So what's the level of interest of investment in fintech in Bahrain?
Well, we do provide, if I'm talking from Bahrain FinTech Bay perspective, we do have our acceleration programs that take you towards a demo day and thus connect you with investors. So there is relatively a healthy appetite for investment in fintech startups in particular. And we try as much to build that connection between the investors and the startups, as there is a considerable gap between investors and startups. So our job as Bahrain FinTech Bay is to support them and to connect them as much as possible. And we try and do that through multiple programs and so on.
So about the fund size, do you have some bigger funds, let's say 200 and 500 million US dollars?
Well, I don't have that much, I don't know the numbers exactly per se, but we do have funds available. We have the Al-Waha Fund and so forth that focus on supporting these startups. We have the Bahrain Development Bank as well that look at supporting and pushing these startups forward with a healthy amount of investment.
So for the investors, in which verticals they are willing to invest? Is there a specific verticals that the founders willing to invest?
I would say in Bahrain currently at the moment, technology is something that's been on the rise for the last couple of years. So obviously, quite a few investors have their head turned towards the ICT side of things. So that definitely brings FinTech under that umbrella of ICT. It's quite a popular FinTech vertical, and it makes sense to be investing in these sorts of technological companies, because ideally that's the way forward for several economies.
Okay, so the next thing about the ecosystem is the talent. I think you have lots of talents coming from the universities, and as far as I can understand, universities are very interested in creating those talents, and they are such powerful universities, I think. No.
Yes, in fact, if you look at some of our numbers, a few years back, we had a lot of business graduates. But lately, in the past 2-3 years, you will see that ICT graduates have also been on the rise. So you can see that there is this shift in demand for more ICT and business, or you can call them STEM graduates, right? So there's been more of a demand for these kind of talent here in Bahrain. And what I would say is that there are programs and there are a lot of training courses and training programs. I mean, if you Google it, you'll come across several FinTech programs, digital transformation programs, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and so forth. You'll find so many training programs available locally and so many people certified. In fact, we launched last year a national FinTech talent program, which is geared towards more fresh graduates and professionals as well. So for the fresh graduates, what we did was that once they graduated from the university, we would find them an internship with one of our partner banks, with the financial institutions. And alongside their internship, which is for a period of 6 months, they would be also doing the Georgetown FinTech program. So we did this program in partnership with the Georgetown University that focuses on FinTech. It's a 12-week program, and it covers all of the different fundamental concepts under the umbrella of FinTech. So there's blockchain, payments, regulatory technology, insurtech, and so much more that comes under FinTech. So it was kind of a side-by-side program where you were doing the internship, so you're gaining practical knowledge, while you're also doing the Georgetown program, which is theoretical and also practical knowledge, roughly. So yeah, we do have a lot of push and also, again, support from the government to push for these kind of programs and for these kind of educational reforms, where a lot of the focus has been on ICT and business graduates, so that they have this new pipeline of talent that we can push into the FinTech ecosystem at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. Yasmin, let's talk a little bit about the prospective businesses that are going to launch their businesses in Bahrain. I mean, doing business in Bahrain. Is it easy to set up a business in Bahrain?
I mean, I believe that because of our tight-knit ecosystem, because of our well-formed and forward-thinking regulations, I think it is quite easy to establish themselves in Bahrain. And of course, with the presence of the regulatory sandbox, I have to say Bahrain is a good testing bed for startups and fintechs and other firms to basically use it as a testing lab to launch and break into the market, get a taste of consumer tastes within Bahrain, and basically launch into the region if need be. So our ecosystem is collaborative. We have a testing lab basically that they can use to their advantage. And I do believe that Bahrain is very accessible and open-minded to what is able to launch here in our market.
Okay, Nawal, as a Turkish startup, if I think of setting up my business in Bahrain, who is the first step, or what is the first step of setting up my business in Bahrain?
Well, it very much depends on the startup. I think ideally, typically, I'll tell you how things go around here. If there's a startup that's looking to operate in Bahrain, there are 3 ways for this person to go forward, right? So firstly, the reach out is to maybe the Economic Development Board, the EDB. Either it could be the Central Bank of Bahrain, or it could be to Bahrain FinTech Bay, right? So now, if this person goes to the EDB first, we have a quite close relationship with the EDB, and any fintech solutions or any opportunities or prospects that come along, they are forwarded to us to help through the process of registration, even if they require co-working space or anything like that. Now, if they come through the Central Bank of Bahrain, they apply, and that means they're looking for a license. They're applying for a license, and they're going to go that way. But mostly, we do also have this connection with Central Bank of Bahrain, and we have roughly, I would say, 50% of the applicants of the sandbox, they are our residents at Bahrain FinTech base. So there is that bridge as well, where we have incoming startups from the Central Bank of Bahrain as well. Then if they come to Bahrain FinTech Bay, obviously there's a direct link up, and we can connect them with the CBB, with the EDB, or whoever, you know, a client that they have that they would like to connect with, or anything as such. And we provide them support in registration. We provide them support in, you know, getting a co-working space. We provide them a support and, you know, maybe building their product if they're still at ideation stage, and anything as such. So yeah, there are 3 different ways for these people to come in. And Bahrain has opened its doors to several international fintech startups, given how I think it's a very friendly environment, you know, with the lower operational costs, lower taxes, and so forth. So it's very easy for a foreign entity or a foreign startup to come and set up in Bahrain. And also, given that the support that they will receive from Bahrain FinTech Bay, from other entities as well, I think it's a great opportunity if any of the Turkish companies as well would like to come and operate in Bahrain. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Dr. Salim, if I may just add on to Nawal's point, if a company wants to come into Bahrain and it is providing regulated services, they must contact the Central Bank of Bahrain. So even if they do come through Bahrain FinTech Bay and set up office space, they must have contact with the licensing team and the FinTech and Innovation Unit of the Central Bank of Bahrain. And this is where our collaborative approach comes into play.
Super. Wajiha, the same question comes to you. If I'm a Turkish fintech startup and have a business model about Islamic fintech products, so how can I reach you? Or what do you expect me to bring to you?
Okay, usually we get some, you know, such, emails or communications about this through Bahrain FinTech Bay or the EDB as well. They are directed to us because we have, you know, as you said, it's a small market, the ecosystem, they are very much connected. You can easily have access to the banks. So we usually get such requests directed through banks or Bahrain FinTech Bay, or directly to, the key people in the bank who are looking after digital transformation and fintech. At the group level, it's me and Mr. Ahmed Blushi. So they can direct to us. We can have some meetings and see how is such a product or such service is viable and to which market it's viable, because we speak as a group level. We are existing in 17 different markets. So some definitely would suit Bahrain. Others might not suit Bahrain, suit somewhere else. So this is the approach that we follow.
Perfect. So I think we are reaching our time. I'm not sure if you have any questions from YouTube. Do we have Nesha?
Well, at the moment, we do not offer any sort of equity, or we do not ask for equity, or we do not offer any grant schemes. But what we do have is we have our acceleration programs or our hackathons. And obviously the winning team, they get a certain amount of cash prize. And that's like a push for them to start operations. And we also offer them co-working space for like 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, depends from program to program. And we also, so if it's a hackathon, they have a cash prize and they have the co-working space. If it's an acceleration program, for example, they get to work directly with one of the financial institutions that we've partnered up with. So per se, we don't have a grant scheme, but we do have prizes that go out at the end of the program to the winning teams.
Any other questions? Okay, now we're out of time then. As the final notes, each of you, What are your recommendations for Turkish fintech startups to establish their companies in Bahrain? In a single sentence, what would be the most important thing when they try to do business in Bahrain? Yasmin.
First of all, I think if you just look at Bahrain's development, we are open-minded, we are accessible as a regulator. The CBB is one of the most accessible regulators around the world, and we're open-minded to receiving any innovative business that wants to establish itself in Bahrain. So join us, simply put. We're happy to have them here.
Thank you. And Nawal?
Well, to move further on Yasmin's point, I think in the last 2 years, we've had considerable amount of development in the fintech ecosystem with the regulations, with the setting up of Bahrain FinTech Bay. And I think what I would say is support. There is tremendous amounts of support here in Bahrain, be it government support, private sector support, or anything as such. I think there is a tremendous amount of support, and it'll be really great if we have some of the companies from Turkey join us here.
Thank you. Wajiha.
I think as you've mentioned this, Bahrain has it's a small market within, a very supportive ecosystem. So the key would be, having more of partnership and collaboration opportunities in such ecosystem is a quite positive, and it has a big opportunity.
Okay, I have two main topics. One is being small is an opportunity from your sayings. And the next one is the collaborative culture in Bahrain between the institutions, right?
Yes.
Okay, ladies, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope we have covered as many topics as we can for startups to make up their decision to invest in Bahrain. But if you still have any questions, please contact Neşe from Bahrain EDB in Turkey. Also, if you are interested in Bahrain ecosystem, you can click in the link and leave your contact info in the YouTube. Now, I would like to thank my panelists for joining me at this great panel. I hope to see you again, but this time live. I hope, inshallah. Thank you and goodbye. Stay safe and sound.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salim.
Thank you.
Thank you.